And speak to Scott Lucas, professor of U.S. and International Politics at University College Dublin. Hello to you, Scott. As this meeting gets underway, Russia continuing deadly attacks on Ukraine. Just how high are the stakes this Sunday?
I think the stakes, not only for Ukraine, but for Europe, including France, indeed for the world, may be the highest that we've seen since 1945. I don't mean that just as hyperbole and getting a soundbite. But what we're seeing here, first and foremost, is whether a country, Russia, is going to be allowed to overrun its neighbor, Ukraine, to seize at least part of its territory, to continue killing its civilians. We are seeing the possibility of Russia expanding those attacks elsewhere in Europe. But here's the difference. For the first time in 84 years, since 1941, the US government is not allied with Europe or with other partners around the world to deal with that threat. The Trump administration is not only standing aside from those alliances, it could be argued that it is actually supporting and indeed enabling the Kremlin. That is an unprecedented situation. It's one in which European countries, the European Union itself, the international community, have got to plan and consider what they do with the United States at best on the sidelines and possibly even in opposition to it.
Yeah, just this Sunday, the Kremlin saying Russia's and U.S. foreign policies are in alignment. Scott, what needs to come out of this summit for it to be successful?
What we're already seeing, of course, is symbolic support for Vladimir Zelensky in Ukraine after Friday's attempt at humiliation of Zelensky by Donald Trump and J.D. Vance. And those words were necessary. They were essential. Indeed, the appearance of Zelensky at 10 Downing Street, hosted by the UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer, was needed. But now you have to back up the words with actions and with organization. You have already mentioned the need to consider what type of security guarantees you can give Ukraine if America stands aside. Specifically, Starmer and Emmanuel Macron had said that U.S. air power was needed to back up troops being inside Ukraine. Well, where is that air power going to come from now? Secondly, what do you do with your sanctions on Moscow if the Trump administration tries to loosen or even remove U.S. sanctions? And thirdly, and this is the big difference that has happened this morning, UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer has announced that the UK, France, possibly one or two other countries working with Ukraine will develop their own plan to end the Russian invasion. They will not allow the direct U.S.-Russia talks to set the agenda. So I think all three of those items, but also just the whole question of coordinating all of this across Europe, where it's not just the UK, not just France, not just a couple of countries, but as many members of the EU and beyond, that's going to be essential as well.
For some time now, Europeans have been discussing how to become less reliant on the United States. What we've seen over these past few weeks, perhaps accelerating that desire, that ambition, that necessity. Can Europe deter Russia without U.S. support?
It's not a question of can. It's a question that you have to. The America of Harry Truman in the Cold War is gone. The America of Dwight Eisenhower is gone. The America of Kennedy, gone. The America of Reagan, gone. Clinton, gone. Even the America that we knew it under Barack Obama, gone. This is a group in America trying to run the country like a business, like the Trump organization. And there are no alliances in that business. There is no win-win in that business. There's just a win-lose. So Europe has no choice here. Europe either stands together or it stands apart in the face of what is now a threat not just from Moscow, but not from Americans, because a lot of Americans are opposed to this, but at least from the man in the White House. So yes, the EU. Well, let me put it this way to you. After World War II, the EEC showed what Europe could do at a time of great political and economic challenge. In the 1990s, the EU showed what Europe could do at the end of the Cold War, and it's continued to do so as more countries have joined it. Now Europe again has to show what it can do. No excuses, no idea that the U.S. leads and we follow. Europe has to step up.
Earlier this Sunday, the British Prime Minister said he trusts Donald Trump, given what you just outlined there. If the U.S. does offer any security guarantees supporting Ukraine, could those guarantees be trusted?
Well, I think you leave the door open for the U.S. to come back in with the security guarantees. That's just simply good politics. Even if I think probably Keir Starmer and Emmanuel Macron know that with Trump and Vance at the head of the White House, you don't get those guarantees. You don't close off that, and you don't confront Trump again. You don't just rile him up. In terms of if the Trump administration bargaining, and a lot of it bargains to provide the security guarantees, you work with the Americans. And the reason why you work with this is that you still have Americans in agencies like the Pentagon, like the State Department, like the Treasury, like the intelligence services, who have worked with Europe for decades. Those people have not yet been purged by Trump and his unelected co-president, Elon Musk. You've got to maintain the links with those agencies. So yes, if we get a security guarantee, you proceed as fast as you can to try to implement those.
Scott, thank you so much for your time. Always a pleasure. Scott Lucas, professor, joining us from University College Dublin.
Thank you.